Hey, computer scientists. I am going to continue on with Unit 7.2. I'm actually going to start with for loops and then do for each loops because I think we're a little bit more familiar with for loops. But we're still using array lists. Again, slightly different than arrays. So the for loop works exactly the same, except instead of saying array.length, because length is property of an array, we have to use the method size. So just a little tweak, a little different. ArrayLists use a method called size to get their length. So otherwise it works exactly the same way. The bug in this little exercise 7.3.2 says it throws an array out of bounds exception, which means it either goes past the end or below 0. And if we look at the for loop, it starts at 0 and it adds by 1, so it's got to be something in here, right? It starts at 0, goes up, up, up. Oh, less than or equal to the size means if we have 10 elements, it's going to go from 0 to 10, which is too many. We need to change that to 0 to 9. That's 10 elements. Otherwise, it works the same. We've already seen this add method. We've added 3 methods here. We can add a few more integers to our list. And it will, what this method does is it starts at 0. So it starts at this one. As long as we're less than the size, keep going through. And the total equals the total plus get the value at I. So get the value at 0, get the value at 1, get the value at 2, get the value at 3, and so on and so on. And once it goes through them all, print out the total. So let's see if this works. Well, it's the output is too much because I changed it, but otherwise it works. We fixed the test in the loop. If I take out these 3, then the sum will be right. So literally works the same way as every other for loop you've ever used. The for each works the same as the for each in arrays. Again, the only difference being that we're using an array list, but you know it's an array list of integers, and we have to use the object integer with a capital I. It's called value. It's going to go through my list, and it's going to add the value to the total. So this variable, remember in the for loop, I just counts from 0 to whatever, but in the enhanced for loop, it actually becomes the value, it becomes the object in my list. Each bucket, it goes into that bucket and becomes that value. So value starts out at 50, then value becomes 30, then value becomes 20. And when you add them all up, it will become 100. So it wants us to write a for each loop that computes the product of all the elements. Okay, so we're going to have, actually I'm just going to reuse total for this. Set it back to 0. I'm going to multiply it by value instead of adding. Oh, I got to start at 1. If you multiply by 0, it's 0. All right, so that is enhanced for loops. And now we have while loops. So again, it's the same as any other while loop. As long as the thing in parentheses is true, it will keep doing whatever is inside this. So as long as the index is less than the size, if the name that was passed in equals whatever is at index in the name list, it will remove it, and then something here we have to do. So we have this list worker, we have a private array list of strings. The constructor takes an array list of the names and stores it in our name list. So you pass in a bunch of names and it stores it in the private variable. To remove a name, it starts out by accepting the name you want to remove. We're going to set found equal to false because we haven't found it yet. We're going to start at the 0 index of our name list. And as long as that index does not go off the end of the array list, we're going to check to see whether the name that was passed in is equal to the current index of name list. If it is equal, we're going to remove the item at our current index. We're going to set found equal to true. And we could actually break out of the loop here. Or what we could also do is say while index is less than the size and found equals false, right? Because there's no point searching. Well, actually there might be. What if the same name is in the list multiple times? We would want to delete it again. So I'm actually not going to take that out. I'm not going to break out of the loop because maybe we want to delete all of the same name from that list. And then once we get through the whole list, we return whether we found it or not. So there we go. So those are the 3 ways you can traverse array lists: with a regular for loop counting through the indices, with an enhanced one by setting each element in the array list to a variable, or with a while loop that keeps going as long as something is true.